Namaskaram. I'm Pranav. Thank you all for joining me today. I hope you all are doing amazing. Before we begin, I wish you all a very happy Vinayaka Chavithi. It is the festival that celebrates Lord Ganesha, the elephant god, who is the remover of obstacles and the giver of strength. On this day, we start new beginnings and seek his blessings for clarity, strength, and wisdom. Saying that, today I'm starting a new journey with all of you with a movie that's very close to my heart, Satyam Sundaram. Before we get into the movie, I will share what the title itself means. Satyam means truth, Sundaram means beauty. Together, it says that truth doesn't have to be harsh and the beauty doesn't have to be superficial. When truth is expressed beautifully, that becomes healing, that becomes universal, and that becomes love. That is the main motto of this channel. I don't want to preach or tell anyone what to do. All I want to do is reflect, hold a mirror, take cinema and life, see the truths in it, and express them in a beautiful way so that we all can connect with it. With that, let's step into the very first scene of Satyam Sundaram. The movie begins with a lamp being extinguished with a flower. Now, that seems to be a very unusual act, isn't it? Normally, the lamps are left to burnt out or maybe gently snuffed out. But here, the lamp is covered by softness, but not violence. This symbolizes the transition from outer rituals to the inner silence. When the flame of the lamp is gently being covered by the flower, on the surface level, it might seem like the lamp or the light is being extinguished. Spiritually, we see this as the outer light is dimming so that the inner light, the inner flame may awaken. Also, if we look it through science, energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It can only change its form. And that is exactly the spiritual truth here. What looks like an ending is only the transformation. The visible flame may go out, but its essence remains, waiting to reappear in different form. Then we see the priest slowly closing the temple door while Nandi is sitting there, gazing forward in silence, as if it is witnessing the ending of one chapter and the beginning of the other. And here it is very important to remember what Nandi exactly symbolizes. In spirituality, Nandi is not just a Shiva's vehicle. He represents unwavering devotion, stillness, and patience. Nandi always faces Shiva, never distracted, never turns away, reminding us that mind must always be steady, fixed on the truth. In deeper sense, Nandi also symbolizes the yogic discipline of directing our energy upwards towards higher consciousness. Even in science, this can be compared to the focus and the single point attention, where the energy collapses into clarity. This particular scene depicts the shutting of one chapter, that is the outer world, and being guided towards the preparation for an inward journey. It is almost as if the divine is saying, the real story now begins with the human heart. Then we see the younger Satyamurti lying on his back at the temple and crying. It represents the human condition, vulnerability, loss, and despair. At 16-17, this is the age where our innocence collides with the harsh realities. Crying in the temple shows that the soul is in a direct dialogue with the divine, stripped out of pride and exposed in raw emotion. The temple becomes not just a structure, but a refuge for the broken himself. This whole sequence captures something very subtle here. It is the difference between outer devotion and the inner realization. Let me explain this further. Here, the lamp represents outer devotion. When it is covered by flower and the temple doors are shut, it is not the rejection of God, but an invitation. It symbolizes that there comes a point in every soul's journey where the divine redirects us from the external devotion towards the inner awakening. It is not that the God is absent. It is like the God, the universe, or the higher consciousness is saying, "Do not seek me outside now. Look for me within, inwards." Have you all ever felt this? When hardship strikes with certain intensity that is greater than our own understanding, that may feel like our outer rituals are insufficient. People pray, but life still brings suffering. At first, this can feel like an abandonment. Why is God silent? But the truth here is, this silence is an act of grace. It is the God's way of breaking blind dependence and pushing us towards an inner strength. This is not punishment, it is rather redirection. It feels like the director is saying, there is always a connection with God, the universe, the higher consciousness. Whatever the name that we want to give, but it's not the blind trust. It is the way of building inner strength. The flower covering the lamp is not extinguishing of the divine, but veiling it so that we search for it more deeply. The boy crying at the threshold is every seeker who has to cross from outer devotion to inner realization. To put it in simple words, God sometimes withdraws outer comfort so we rediscover the inner presence. The closing of the temple door is the opening of the heart. Then comes the next scene. While the boy is crying in despair, an elephant touches his forehead. This isn't just a gentle kiss, but it feels more like a wake-up call. Elephants in temples are symbolics of Ganesha, the remover of obstacles. In yogic tradition, the forehead is seat of the Agna chakra, the third eye, associated with clarity, intuition, and inner vision. From the scientific perspective, this point is linked to the pineal gland. So, when the elephant touches the boy's forehead, it can be seen not only as a spiritual blessing, but also as the awakening of the higher center of perception. In life, too, whenever we collapse under grief, the divine has subtle ways of waking us all. Through people, through circumstances, through moments like this. This is not just a kind gesture, but a sacred act. The message is subtle but clear. Do not drown in hopelessness. Your inner intelligence, your wisdom, your divine companionship is always with you and within you. When everything external is taken away from us, the God reveals himself within. To put it simple, compassion of the divine, that is, the God never abandons us, he simply shifts form. The seed of awakening, that is, the loss and pain, are not punishments, but they are the beginnings. Right after this divine moment, we see a priest stepping into the frame. Out of compassion, he invites the boy to come home, to spend some time with them, and play with the elephant. In human terms, it is natural. When someone suffers, we want to soothe them. And then the priest says something very striking here. He says, when the elephant was small, he was up to the boy's shoulder height. And now, the boy is up to the elephant's shoulder height. This dialogue is not casual. It is layered with meaning. On one level, it is a simple observation of time passing. That is, both the boy and the elephant have grown. But on deeper level, it is the reflection of life itself. Growth does not happen in isolation. We evolve alongside others, alongside nature, alongside dharma. As a child, the boy was taller compared to the elephant. But now, the elephant has grown much bigger, much larger in size. This shift is symbolic. It shows how life changes as we grow. So, the priest's words carry a subtle teaching here. You are no longer a child. Your dharma is grown larger than you. Stand beside it with reverence and let it guide you. Also, here the boy is not ready for the comfort. He is drowning in the first stage of grief, shock, sadness, and helplessness. His tears show he must first process the intensity of loss before he can accept companionship. Sometimes Comfort is not what the soul needs. Comfort can soften the edges of pain, but pain, when faced fully, can become the fire that burns away the illusion. Boy's soul is already pushing him towards it. It is saying, do not settle in comfort now. Walk through the grief. Let it break you open so that the evolution can happen. Here, there are two ways people respond to suffering. One is seek comfort immediately. That is, escape into distraction or maybe depend on someone else to carry their burden. And the second one, it is to process grief fully. That is, to feel it, to process it, and allow it to transform. This scene portrays that the boy is leaning towards the second. His crying is not weakness, it is processing. By refusing to hide in comfort, he is unknowingly taking the harder but the truer path. That is the soul's evolutionary path. Comfort is useful when the soul is fragile, but when the grief is processed fully, that becomes strength. The priest symbolizes the compassion of the will, but the boy's choice here symbolizes the courage of the soul. Evolution does not happen when we avoid pain. It happens when we let the pain carve us open to the divine. Here, the priest is offering external comfort, but the boy's soul knows that it is the time not for the comfort or the rest. It is the moment to feel, to endure, to be broken open, because only then the awakening can begin. In simple words, comfort soothes, but the grief transforms. Then comes the next scene, where the boy is still in tears but still shows care towards the elephant. He asks the priest to take the elephant home and feed her, worrying that she might be hungry. Even in the midst of his own sorrow and loss, his heart expands outward in compassion. He forgets pain for a moment and thinks for the wellness of the other being here. That is the seed of true dharma. The boy's compassion for the elephant says that the human heart is capable to transcend the personal suffering and recognize the hunger, the need, the life of the another. The act of feeding depicts the soul's responsibility here. It teaches that love and spirituality are not abstract, they manifest in practical care. The boy is not only being blessed, but he is already living the blessing by showing dharma through his instinct to care. After this, the boy says that he is leaving the town permanently because they have lost their ancestral home. This line carries a subtle depth here. Leaving the town is not just about changing the place, it symbolizes a complex break from the old world. He is no longer shielded by the past. He must step into life without the protection of his lineage. This loss is both tragic and transformative, forcing him onto a new path of discovery. In spiritual terms, this is a soul's call to begin a new journey. Sometimes awakening requires us to leave away not just the structure, but the whole landscape. Only then a new chapter can unfold. Also, the ancestral home in the story is more than just a physical structure. Home carries memories. They hold the energy of generations, their joys, their wounds, their unresolved karma. This connects to the idea of ancestral trauma. That is the unconscious patterns, sufferings, and blockages carried forward through generations within a family. Many times, these become invisible weights on the soul's journey. It is almost like the director is saying, the boy's awakening requires the breakage of the lineage ties. This loss is not punishment, but purification. What he inherits is not the land or the property, but the responsibility to clear and awaken. When we place this next to the elephant's touch, that is the Ganesha's blessing, that becomes further clear. As soon as the boy loses his worldly inheritance, he is given a spiritual inheritance, that is wisdom, intelligence, and the promise of divine companionship. So, here the narrative becomes, the loss of ancestral home symbolizes breaking free from inherited trauma, And the elephant's blessing is an initiation into the higher path, clearing the lineage through awakening. This perception takes the story beyond the surface level drama to the soul level awakening. It is not only about the boy losing the house, it is about the humanity's journey of shedding karmic baggage, facing ancestral pain, and stepping into the freedom. And this ties so much to our own lives. We often carry the burdens from family, society, and even generations before us that are not ours, but through awakening, we are able to transform our pain into light. This not only clears the way just for ourselves, but also for those who comes after us. Then comes the next scene. As the boy prepares to leave the temple, the priest pauses and offers him prasadam, a sacred food that is first offered to God and then that is shared among everyone as a blessing. The boy doesn't resist, but he quietly receives it. This moment comes right after all the grief that we have seen, and it feels like a gentle pause, a reminder from the divine that even in pain, grace is still being placed in his hands. Usually, a common response to loss is to turn away in anger. Here, the boy doesn't. That humility keeps his heart soft and receptive, which is vital for a soul's evolution. This scene speaks, even now, I accept whatever that comes from divine. That micro choice plants the seed for future acceptance. Also, just after we have seen his concern for the elephant's hunger, the boy himself receives a sacred food. It is as if the compassion that he showed outward returns to him with grace, reminding us Dharma is reciprocal. Caring for others invites the divine to care for us. Moreover, Dharma isn't just caring outwardly, it is also the self-nourishment. Dharma secures the mind so that the awakened buddhi, the higher intelligence, can guide us. Now, I will put together the overall symbolism of the whole first sequence. The lamp being covered by the flower shows that the outer light must dim so that the inner flame may awaken. The temple doors closing with Nandi watching symbolize a passage from outer ritual to the inner realization by directing energies upward towards the higher intelligence, the higher consciousness. The boy lying and crying in the temple reflects the raw human experience of suffering. The elephant's touch on the forehead is more than an affection. It is a wake-up call. The boy's decision to leave the town permanently represents as karmic break, stepping away not just from the house, but from the entire landscape of memory, lineage, and inherited pain. The prasadam scene shows the subtle power of the grace. Even in despair, the boy does not reject God. He accepts what is given, eats it, and carries that blessing within him. Taken together, these moments reveal the essence of the film. That is, pain leads to awakening, grace meets us even in despair, and loss becomes the doorway to deeper journey. Here in this sequence, we see the boy entering the very first stage of grief. And grief is not something only this character faces. It is something we all of us go through. In my next video, I will share about 5 stages of grief: anger, denial, bargaining, depression, and acceptance, and how they show up in real life. And then, as we move forward in Satyam Sundaram, you will see how each stage actually unfolds in the boy's journey. So, stay tuned because this is where cinema and life meet. Until then, you all take care, have an awesome life. Namaskaram.